My daughter was in terrible pain after her accident, but this nurse's response made my blood boil. I'll never forget how she smirked while my child suffered. She had broken both legs in a car crash, and the doctors said the next 48 hours would be crucial. The pain medicine they gave her only lasted 4 hours, and when it wore off, she would cry so hard she could barely breathe. Her whole body would shake, and it broke my heart watching her suffer. I started setting alarms 30 minutes before each dose. The night nurse would always say, "I'll get to it," but wouldn't move from her phone. My daughter would squeeze my hand so tight, tears rolling down her face, begging for help. I felt so helpless watching the clock tick by. One night, the medicine was an hour late. I found the nurse laughing in the break room, scrolling through social media. When I reminded her about the medicine, she rolled her eyes and said, "She's young. She can handle it." She didn't even look up from her phone. I lost it. I told her, "That's my 16-year-old daughter sobbing in pain while you're watching TikToks." I marched straight to the supervisor's office at 3 a.m., shaking with anger. The supervisor checked the records and found out the nurse had been forgetting doses for other patients too. She was fired on the spot. Our new nurse was amazing. She never made my daughter wait a single minute for her medicine, and even brought her favorite ice cream to help cheer her up. Sometimes I still think about how many other patients suffered because of that nurse's laziness. Being in pain is terrible, but being ignored when you're in pain is even worse.
My dad framed my brother to save himself, so I became the son he couldn't outrun. Dad's legal firm was everything to him. Founded it himself, built it for 30 years, put it above his own family. When money started disappearing from client accounts, everyone assumed it was Mark, my older brother who worked in accounting there. The evidence looked solid. Logan records, transfers made from his computer, even security footage of him staying late on nights when funds moved. Police arrested him at our house while Dad watched silently, his face blank as stone. Mark kept saying the same thing over and over. "Dad, tell them. You know I didn't do this." But Dad just looked away. Something felt wrong. Mark was careless sometimes, but never a thief. The night before the arrest, I'd seen Dad in his home office, shredding stacks of papers with shaking hands. When he noticed me watching, he slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. At the trial, Dad testified against Mark. "I wanted to believe in my son's innocence," he told the jury, voice cracking just enough. "But the evidence doesn't lie. The performance was perfect." The respected lawyer reluctantly doing his civic duty. Mark got 8 years. I was 17 then. I visited Mark every month while finishing high school. "Find the backup server," he whispered during one visit. "Dad keeps everything. Always has." Turns out, Dad's generation never trusted the cloud. He kept a mirrored backup server running in our basement, hidden behind the furnace. I found it while he was at a conference, logged in using his birthday. Amateur move for a supposedly brilliant lawyer. The files told the real story. Dad had been siphoning from accounts for years. Small amounts at first, then larger as his gambling debts grew. He'd been doctoring records, but he needed someone to take the fall when the firm's annual audit approached. Mark was convenient. I didn't confront him. Instead, I made copies of everything. Then I applied to law school, the same one Dad attended. He was so proud the night I got accepted that he actually hugged me for the first time in years. "Following in my footsteps," he said, patting my back. If only he knew. I studied harder than anyone in my class. Graduated top 5%. When I got hired at the state prosecutor's office, Dad threw me a party. All his colleagues were there, raising glasses to his legacy. For 2 years, I built my reputation, handling small cases, gaining trust. Then I requested assignment to the Financial Crimes Division. Last month, I walked into Dad's firm with 6 officers and a warrant. The managing partners watched in shock as we seized servers and files. Dad wasn't there, golf day, so I drove to the country club myself. I found him on the 9th hole. When he saw my face, he knew. "What did you do?" he whispered. "My job," I said, handing him the warrant with my signature on it. His hands trembled as he read the charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, obstruction, framing an innocent man. The officers took him away in view of everyone he'd ever tried to impress. The case was solid, his own backup server providing most of the evidence. Yesterday was Mark's first day of freedom. 8 years of his life gone. We sat on my porch drinking beers, not talking about Dad's upcoming trial. "Was it worth it?" Mark finally asked. "Law school? Prosecutor's office? Living his dream just to destroy it?" I thought about Dad's face when I handed him that warrant. The moment he realized the son he'd molded in his image had become the perfect weapon against him. "Yes," I said. "It was worth every second." I told my parents I won't change my name because of their regret. I legally changed my name to Atlas when I turned 18. My birth certificate had Michael William Reynolds Jr. on it, named after my father who walked out when I was 2. For 16 years, I hated being called Junior or Little Mike. Every time someone said my name, it felt like dragging around the shadow of a man who decided we weren't worth keeping. School always started the same. "Michael Reynolds," the teacher would call. "I go by MJ," I'd answer, trying to create distance. Mom worked 2 jobs after he left. She'd help with homework despite being exhausted and never complained. Not even when grandparents would say, "He looks more like his father every day," as if that was a compliment. When I was 15, Mom started dating David. He was nothing like my father. Quiet, reliable, with a dry sense of humor. An English professor who wore sweater vests and collected maps. His first visit, he brought me a journal instead of forcing some guy bonding activity. David never tried to replace my dad. He just showed up. He came to baseball games with his grading work, occasionally looking up to cheer. He helped with college applications and never made me feel like a burden. Once I heard him tell Mom, "He's not my son," but I couldn't be prouder if he was. Before senior year, I researched name changes. Nothing felt right until I remembered a book David gave me about Greek mythology. Atlas, the titan who held up the heavens. That resonated. When I told them my plan, Mom was supportive but confused. "Why Atlas?" she asked. "Because Atlas carried the world on his shoulders. That's how I felt, carrying Dad's name when he couldn't carry his responsibilities. At least Atlas never put down his burden and walked away." David nodded. "Names have power. They tell a story." "Exactly. I want to tell my own." After my birthday, I filed the paperwork. 6 weeks later, I became Atlas Reynolds. My first college letter addressed to my new name is still pinned to my board. Everything was fine until last week when my biological father called. Mom handed me the phone with a strange look. "Junior? How's my little Michael Jr.?" My stomach dropped. "That person doesn't exist anymore." "What? My name is Atlas now." He laughed like it was a joke. "That's not your name. You're Michael William Reynolds." Reynolds Jr. Named you myself. Right before you left, I added. I legally changed it. He said he was changed. Sorry. Wanted to reconnect. He'd moved back to town with his new family, but wanted to make things right with his first son. He kept repeating my old name like he could force it back onto me. Yesterday, I found his car in our driveway. Mom and David sat stiffly in the living room with my biological father on our couch like he belonged there. They ambushed me with dinner. Mom kept giving apologetic glances. David was quiet. My father dominated with stories about his new life, kids, and business. At dessert, he addressed the elephant in the room. So you've changed your name to Atlas? Like the map book? Like the Titan, I corrected. Well, he chuckled. Time to reconsider. You're starting college soon. Reynolds men have carried the Michael name for generations. 3, Mom said quietly. 3 generations. He waved her off. You're erasing your heritage, acting impulsively. I understand you were angry. Were? I repeated. But changing your name is extreme and hurtful. David cleared his throat. Atlas has given this a lot of thought. My father's eyes flashed. With all due respect, this isn't about you. I stood up and looked him straight in the eyes. Those eyes people said I inherited. You erased yourself from my life when I was 2. I won't change back to a name that reminds me of your regret. I'm Atlas now, carrying my own world, not yours. He argued I was being dramatic, that family names matter, that I'd regret this. I shook my head. The only thing I regret is taking 18 years to realize I could put down a burden I never asked to carry. Later, David joined me outside with hot chocolate. For what it's worth, he said, Atlas suits you. And somehow, I felt lighter than ever before.